button, and that means we've got to wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet before we go ahead and get started. And we're going to see if the audio stays with us here today. I rebooted the machine, opened up all the new tabs, got everything situated. Hopefully it works. You know, there's all sorts of tubes to connect. Well, we'll see. We'll figure it out. But it looks like they're working for now, which is tremendously good news. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney broadcasting from the Valley of the Sun deep in the depths of downtown Phoenix. And today we are talking about the Forsaken. In two instances, we've got two segments to get to. One situation where we have items that may or may not be forsaken is with these weather balloons and these objects, because they apparently have been lost. That is the headline from our friend Senator Kennedy. He came out of the classified briefing today where they were talking all about this news stuff. And he said, yeah, no, they're gone. He said, what do you mean they're gone? Well, they're gone. They can't find them is what he said. And we're going to go, oh my gosh, you're kidding me. So we're not going to get the evidence? Well, we'll see. So we're going to go through that. There was a classified briefing in Congress, tons of reaction. We got Senator Blumenthal. We got Tom Cotton. The Republicans are demanding that Biden come out and speak. Schumer's given the same old talking points. We're going to check in with Senator Kennedy, as I mentioned, and Mitch McConnell, along with Lindsey Graham. They're saying the balloons are basically gone. So we'll talk about that. Now, before we talk about all of it, of course, General Milley was out there along with John Kirby, and they're telling us what they have been able to uncover thus far. So the fourth balloon that they took a shot at, evidently they missed on the first shot. Ugh, you hate when that happens. They got it with the second one. People are asking questions about where the missile went. Where did it land? So Milley's going to explain that for us. But then his take is that the balloons aren't lost. You know, they're just still recovering them. You know, they're going to get them eventually. He says, we're still recovering balloons 2, 3, and 4. That's kind of not what Senator Kennedy heard. So we'll piece that all together. We also have this reaction from Kirby, who is also now out. You see in front of the White House where they have their nice little hearts. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. And he is explaining that, well, you know, it might not even be that big of a deal. They might have just been little Timmy's science projects that were floating around up there in the sky. And the last time we did the little Timmy hypothetical, I had a commenter out there named evidently Timmy, and he's very unhappy with me saying little Timmy. He said, I'm 6'1", by the way. All right. So apologies to all little Timmys out there. But you get the picture. This is sort of, we're trying to assess what the heck is going on here. And we're going to see if the White House can help us out. So all of that is going to be in the first segment. And next, we'll go into our second segment. We're going to come back home down here to Arizona. Shout out. And it is going to be, unfortunately, not a good story. And we don't know too much yet about the facts of the case because we haven't seen the discovery or the police reports or any of the actual details. However, we are going to go through the story of George Allen Kelly. He's a 73-year-old rancher in Arizona, very, very, very far south from where I'm at, in a place called Keno Springs, right on the border. You can see it's right between the United States and Mexico. And he has been arrested for murder, allegedly shot and killed a non-citizen. We don't really kind of know what the status was. We don't know if he was, you know, legally here or not, or what the deal was, but we're going to go through some background on that. He is, of course, being charged with crimes. He's being held on $1 million bond. We will take a look at the full initial appearance, which is the first, kind of the second official court proceeding that he had. And this is where they set the bond. They talk about appointing a lawyer. I want to go through all the documents, including the complaint, including the initial appearance document that he filled out. You can take a look at his handwriting where he signed the document, right? And we'll watch him be walked in to the court proceeding and then be walked out. You can see he's a pretty elderly guy, and so he's just being shown the door there. We'll go through all of that. There was a motion to modify his release conditions to try to drop that $1 million bond down into something lower. And then there's this a sort of a new development is apparently this guy wrote a book, and the book is a fictional account of something that mirrors exactly what happened, or that's what they're saying. And so they're saying, uh-oh, this might mean that he had some sort of fictional, you know, bloodthirst, and he wanted to get out there and do this. And other people are just saying that's not true at all. So we'll go through this. Of course, there is a Give, Send, Go available for Mr. George Allen Kelly. and he is trying to raise funds now, I guess, to post bond. It's over at Give Send Go. I think his GoFundMe got canceled. So if you're inclined, certainly look that up and you can dive into it. So that, my friends, is what we're going to get into today. And as you can see, there is just a lot to get to. And if you want to be a part of the show, the best place to do that is by heading over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We have an amazing community chatting away. So Dana's in the house. We got Snowbirds in the house. John McGarvey's over there. JC, the music man. And we had Paul Mino says Twitter's up. Yes, he says, get in here, man. Get in here. And so that's awesome. We have an awesome community over there. No, I do not own a yellow shirt to the best of my knowledge. And so come check us out. We're also beta testing the new website, which I'm excited to share with you probably next week. We're slowly sort of onboarding the members, and then we'll sort of, you know, I don't want to crash everything, and I'm sort of working all the kinks out of it. So I don't want to release it, but it's coming soon. We're playing around with it over there, and come check us out. We also, yeah, it's a very beta website for sure. Very beta right now. I'm working on the testosterone in the code. But we also have our sponsors, which is Brickhouse Nutrition. You can eat your greens every day. I had mine this morning right here. My field of greens right here. You can see it's delicious product. Get yours, and you can be healthy and vibrant. Use code Robert to save 15% when you check out at fieldofgreens.com when you get your real organic superfood. Also, want to shout out my former law firm. Of course, I'm not there anymore, but they're still a great team, obviously. Some say even better now, better than ever. And they're available at rrlawaz.com. Also, you can find them at 480-787-0394. A lot of people here in Arizona over the weekend, a lot of Super Bowl festivities and Waste Management Open festivities and lots of stuff. So you know anybody who got in trouble with the law, that's the law firm to help. R&R Law Group, located in Scottsdale. All right, my friends. Now, let's get this puppy queued up and get right back into business on the date. The balloons, where did they go? A lot of people have questions about the balloons, or were they objects, or were they aliens, or what the heck were these things? Well, they shot them down, and they told us that they were just going to go retrieve them, and they were going to analyze them, and we'd be able to piece together this entire saga. Unfortunately, the balloons might be lost. That's exactly what Senator Kennedy told us. There was a classified briefing. A lot of senators reacted to this. You can see them all here. We will listen to them in sequence. But first, let's see what the White House had to say about all of this, because they have been the ones doing the shooting, and they have been telling us that they're going to get a ton of data, that they've been acting with total competence, and that this is going to result in stronger national security all across America. Unfortunately, when they tell us this stuff, they're sort of making admissions that this is kind of not going so hot. In fact, the fourth balloon, or the fourth object, or the fourth space alien they shot out of the sky, the first missile missed, and the media caught wind of this, and they asked General Milley about this when he was out in Brussels talking about Ukraine. What else?
So, Tara, on the balloon shot, yes, first shot missed. On the fourth balloon. So we're talking about the balloon that was downed over Lake Huron. The first balloon, the Chinese spy balloon that went down over the Atlantic and the South Carolina coast, that shot hit. The second one over Alaska, on the north coast of Alaska, that one hit. The third one that landed in the Yukon, that one hit. On the fourth one over Lake Huron, first shot missed, second shot hit. So the most important thing for the American.
So if China wasn't laughing, they're definitely laughing now, right? Presuming these are Chinese balloons, or maybe they're not. And we're going to hear from John Kirby. He says that they might just be commercial balloons, or Little Timmy Science Project, or something else. Maybe it's Elon's car that he blasted off into outer space coming back. Who knows? But the point is, the missiles we're firing are also missing the balloons. I guess 25% of the time. We got 4 balloons. We got 3 out of 4 on the first go. They missed on the fourth time, so it's like 75%. It's like a C grade, I guess. Got to do it again.
American military is to protect the American people. So we evaluate the risk. We evaluate the risk of the balloons themselves. Are they a kinetic threat or not? Yes, no. Are they an intelligence threat? Are they a threat to civil aviation? All those things we go through very, very carefully. We determine what the debris field is likely to be with one of these platforms landing on the Earth's surface or in the water. So we go to great lengths to make sure that the airspace is clear and the backdrop is clear out to the max effective range of the missile. And in this case, the missile landed harmlessly in the water of Lake Huron. We tracked it all the way down, and we made sure that the airspace was clear of any commercial or civilian or recreational traffic. We do the same thing for the maritime space. So we're very, very deliberate in our planning. Northcom does that along with the pilots themselves. So we're very, very careful to make sure that those shots are in fact safe. And that's the guidance from the president. Shoot it down, but make sure we minimize collateral damage and we preserve the safety of the American people.
Yeah, it's a good thing they went through all of those precautions since they missed, very good thing they do that, because otherwise, if they're expecting to hit it and they don't, well, where maybe that missile ends up in somebody's backyard, and that would be very bad. So, not really ideal when you're trying to project strength. We just kind of had a difficult situation where the Chinese literally flew a spy balloon. That's confirmed. The first balloon, they know, yeah, it's a big, giant spy payload that is on there, and they've already started to recover some of that. So, presuming this is in alignment with those other things, they also failed to shoot it down. So the Chinese are like basically 1 and 4 have evaded U.S. defenses, right? First one and the second one. So that's about a 50% success rate as far as we can tell thus far. Not very good, General Milley. Wondering why that might be. Maybe he should be, you know what we should probably do? He probably needs another $1 billion to investigate white rage, and maybe they can talk about more face masks and mandates throughout the rest of the military. Maybe that'll solve the problem. All right, so they are still recovering balloons 2, 3, and 4. We're going to hear from the senators. They left a classified briefing where maybe they got new information, maybe more information than the military has. Who knows? But this guy, Milley, is going to tell us that they're still recovering 2, 3, and 4. And I want to pay close attention to this. We're going to do the old compare and contrast between Milley and Kennedy, who's a senator. Now, what he heard is that they lost the balloons. They're gone. They can't find them. They've gone down all over very difficult terrain, so they're not going to get these balloons back at all. But Milley's, well, we're still recovering. Don't worry about it. We're in the, we're in charge here. We know how to recover these down balloons. Let's listen.
Just a quick clarifier. Are you confirming that the other 3 objects were also balloons like the first one?
I'll just use the word object. That's what everyone's using. We'll see. We don't have them recovered yet, as you know. Number 2, 3, and 4 not recovered yet. Number 1 we are recovering and getting a lot of stuff off that, but 2, 3, and 4 not yet recovered. They're in very difficult terrain.
Okay.
The second one off the coast of Alaska is that's up in some really, really difficult terrain in the Arctic Circle.
Great.
With very, very low temperatures in the minus 40s.
So probably not getting
the second
that
one is in the Canadian Rockies in Yukon. Very difficult to get that one.
We'll
and
see.
The third one is in Lake Huron at probably a couple hundred feet depth. So
yeah, bottom
we'll
of
get
the
them
lake
eventually, but it's going to take some time to recover those.
All right. Now, he made it sound like they know where they are. They've got them identified. They just got to go get them, right? It's going to take us some time to get out there. I mean, we know where they are. But all we got to do is just put on the old boots and get out there and drag them back to our bases for analysis, right? Should be pretty simple stuff. We'll see if they actually know where they are. So that's one front. That's the military front. That's the Biden, DOD explaining. We also have now one from John Kirby, and we listened to a lot of John Kirby yesterday. He had a very long prepared statement. They don't want to tell us much about these, about the shape, or about a lot of the other details about the capabilities. But now we're seeing that maybe this isn't even anything to worry about at all. I mean, first of all, we're not probably going to be recovering these. We'll see, very difficult circumstances and terrain in order to get them back. But, they may not even be that big of a deal. I mean, the first one, like we knew that was Chinese and that was a spy balloon. But these other things, they may, be just science projects. They just may be just little benign, uninteresting, even civilian balloons, says John Kirby.
About them. What were they? Were they balloons? Were they from China?
Yeah. We're not describing them as balloons right now, George. We're calling them objects because that's the best description we have right now. What I can tell you is they were very much smaller than the Chinese spy balloon, in cases about the size of a car. They did not appear to have any maneuvering capability, so they didn't look like they were piloted or anything like that. And again, they fell down in some pretty remote locations in the Northwest and, of course, over Lake Michigan. So it could take us a while to actually reach the debris, let alone have a chance to collect it and analyze it.
Probably not from China?
We don't know, George. It could be from a nation state. They could be from commercial entities, research, scientific institutions.
Oh, you're kidding me. They're weather balloons? They could be commercial in nature? They could be Timmy's 4th grade class?
Don't know.
So what's going on right now? We had years and years where we did not detect, at least that's what spokespeople have said, we did not detect Chinese balloons flying into the United States, into United States airspace. Now we're catching all these objects and shooting them down. Is there more of a threat, or are we just detecting more? And if we're detecting more, why?
There's two things here. One,
They turned the
we
gain
have
up
been
on the
studying
radars.
Chinese spy balloon program since we came into office. This is a program that they have been working on for several years. So they have ramped up their abilities. They have ramped up their deployment of these balloons over just recent years. So that is fairly soon. And then because of the spy balloon, we changed some of the radar parameters for our air defense capabilities, particularly over the northern part of our hemisphere. And it is possible that in part, because of tweaking the radar sensitivities, we are simply seeing more objects right now.
What more can you tell us about the parts of the payload of the Chinese spy balloon that have been recovered?
We had some good weather over the weekend, George. They were able to bring up some parts of the debris, some of the, even of the structure of the payload itself.
Great.
Some of those include some of the electronics. I don't want to get into too much detail, but we are starting to get things up off the bottom of the ocean there, and try to get it analyzed by the FBI. Weather was not permitting yesterday. We'll see what it goes today. If the sea state will permit divers to get down there.
Are the Chinese going to have to shut down this spy balloon
No.
program now that we've discovered so much about their capabilities?
No, it was successful.
I can't speak for the Chinese, George. I don't know what they'll do with this. This is a program that they've been working on for several years.
No, they're
trying
not going to shut down
exploit this
anything.
particular part of the
It worked.
of the atmosphere for surveillance purposes. But we studied it very, very hard. We were able to do some forensics and reverse engineering to previous flight paths that weren't detected in previous years. And we briefed Congress. We briefed Congress in a classified setting back in August about this program. So we're going to keep studying it, keep trying to learn from it. And because we were able to shoot this balloon down in waters off the Atlantic, now we've got that debris. We'll be able to learn even more about this particular platform.
As you know,
Give me a break. So they're going to go spy harder on the Chinese, and the Chinese spied on us. They're very happy they shot the balloon down where they shot it down. They could have shot this balloon down where they shot the other balloons down, right before it actually crossed over all of the sensitive sites. But they're going to keep beating that talking point into the ground that they got more detail and more intel than the Chinese did. Pretty embarrassing. So that is John Kirby, and we'll see if the White House has anything more for us. You heard them say they're going to turn it over to the FBI. The FBI is going to be investigating this national security balloon, I guess. The FBI. All right. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We'll see what they can dig out for us. Should be hilarious. Probably going to be, you know what? Oh, great. It's going to be more insurrectionists probably on the balloon. It wasn't Chinese at all. It was those white insurrectionists who kidnapped the governor that one time. Oh, great. All right. So get ready. Now, there was also more. In a classified briefing, a number of senators provided their reaction to the balloon, and we're going to go through them all here because there's a lot of them. Let's see here. After a classified briefing, Senator Kennedy, Schumer, Blumenthal, and Cotton all answered questions for the camera. Senator Lindsey Graham escaped. He did not want to talk about what he heard in that classified briefing room. And so there was a lot of reaction. We have Blumenthal, who's going to be the first person who kicks it off for us. Now, something interesting was happening here today. The media was basically perched up outside of the room where all of the senators were exiting. So you can see this kind of horde of journos just surrounding the senators, and they're walking by one, and they're flagging them down. Hey, can we get your, hey, Senator, can you stop for just a quick minute? We need to ask you a question. And so we're going to go through several of them as they're making their way through, starting with Mr. Blumenthal.
What's your general assessment? Like, do you feel like you have a better understanding of what these objects are?
I have a better understanding, but the American people need and deserve to know more. There is a lot of information presented to us this morning that could be told to the American people without any harm to sources or methods or our national security. And the American people need to know more so they'll have more confidence in our national security. As I've said, after so many of these briefings, our adversaries often know what we know. We know they know. The American people,
they know we know they
don't know, and they deserve to know more. And so I think that there's a need for greater transparency and more facts to the American people.
This is a Democrat. Blumenthal's a Democrat, and he's saying there needs to be more transparency. So he's sort of, saying, hey, Biden people, you're not doing such a hot job. He's leaving this classified briefing, says we got to tell you, America, more about what's going on, and we're not allowed to do that.
Objects are a threat to.
With these objects, are you concerned about the safety of America?
I am not in any way afraid that we are under a threat of attack or physical harm to our homeland. That's my personal feeling. But the American people need to be reassured with more facts.
Is there that? Do you want the Biden administration to?
And so he makes it out of there and he says, well, transparency is lacking in this case, obviously. And the Biden people and the administration should be telling us more rather than faking like this is aliens or something. We also have Tom Cotton. Some people have said that maybe he could be a potential presidential candidate at some point. Very upset. Tom Cotton says, enough already. The president needs to come out and speak to America about the situation. Commander in chief, right? Somebody who's supposed to assure Americans that they are in command at the White House.
So, as usual, we had another classified briefing in which we learned nothing that I didn't already know as a member of the Intelligence Committee and Armed Services Committee, or for that matter, that one couldn't learn from reading your newspapers and watching your news channels. That's why I want to stress
this YouTube
again,
live stream.
President Biden owes the American people an explanation. President Biden should speak on camera directly to the American people today. Justin Trudeau gave an explanation to the people of Canada over the weekend. Surely we're not in a world where Justin Trudeau is a more decisive and forceful leader than the American president.
Yikes. Is that the reality we're living in? Justin Trudeau is a stronger leader than Joe Biden? Oh, man, that's bad.
I appreciate the military coming to brief us. I appreciate the intelligence community briefing Congress in a classified setting. But Americans are worried, they're concerned, they're interested, and they have a right to know why President Biden directed the actions that he did over the last week. So I urge once again President Biden to come today, speak directly on camera to the American people, just as past presidents have in similar moments. Like Ronald Reagan explained what had happened when Soviet Russia shot down a Korean Airlines flight in 1983. Like George Bush spoke to the American people after Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait in 1990. President Biden needs to explain to the American people why he has been doing what he's been doing.
Senator, based on what you heard, what's your general assessment of the threat level? What have you learned? Do you feel comfortable now? Or?
Well, what you've been reporting is what we've been hearing as well. It's contradictory. On the one hand, the administration is saying we don't yet know what these last three objects are, and we don't want to characterize them until we recover them. But on the other hand, it wasn't a threat. Both of those things can't be true. So that's why it's urgent that President Biden resolve these contradictions.
Do we know the two questions for you? Do we know the country of origin? And then what is the shift or apparent shift in strategy to shooting these objects down?
I don't want to speculate about the first question. Second question, I think it's obvious. What happened 2 weekends ago is clear. There's nothing more than meets the eye. China sent a spy balloon to America. We had our eyes on it. President Biden had a chance to shoot it down over the Aleutians. He chose not to, and it floated all across America, and then finally shot it down off the East Coast.
He delayed, and he's paying for it, right? That's the whole point. He could have taken action. He didn't take action. Now they're taking a ton of action to make up for the fact that they failed to take action the first go round. And now they're trying, oh no, we blow everything out of the sky, baby. You're like, yeah, but that was a bald eagle up there. Like, well, we didn't know if it was a Chinese bald eagle or not, so it had to go. Take it easy, everybody. But the first one, right, was the one that they really botched big time. And so now it's all, fixing it after the fact, and it's pretty obvious.
He took a lot of criticism from that, including criticism from senators in his own party, and therefore I think he didn't want to suffer that criticism again. What we should have done from the very beginning is shoot down the first balloon over the Aleutians. Look, we should not spend billions, probably tens or even hundreds of billions of dollars, changing the way we protect our own airspace against small, slow-moving objects. We have the capability in certain settings to detect those. What we should do is make it clear to countries like China and Russia that we will not permit it in the first place. That if it approaches our shores, we'll shoot it down, and in the meantime impose consequences on it. Like, say, banning TikTok from America, banning Chinese investment in sensitive areas, not letting Chinese diplomats, by which I mean spies, enter America willy-nilly and travel all around our country. We have to reestablish fear in Beijing that America will stand up for our core national security interests.
Just to
Is there
clarify,
any update on
just to clarify,
You believe that this moment demands a presidential address?
Yes, he needs to speak to the American people. Where's the president been? Justin Trudeau went out and spoke to the people of Canada over the weekend. I'm not saying he has to go to the Oval Office. I mean, he can go to the press room. He can do a press huddle on the South Lawn of the White House, but he needs to speak directly to the American people to answer their concerns and their interest in this matter.
Is there any update on recovery efforts?
I don't want to get into the
Talk to the military about it, says Tom. But it's a good question. The president has been pretty quiet about this, talked a little bit about it in the State of the Union. Otherwise, most of the White House this has been delegated, right? John Kirby's been talking about it and others. But this is a situation in the United States, even if you just zoom out on this thing objectively. Have we shot down other foreign craft over American skies before? Ever? In a situation like the continental U.S.? I don't think so. So it's been a new thing, right? And a lot of people have questions about it. And it feels like the military kind of screwed up a little bit. So I think Tom Cotton is exactly right. There should be some formal acknowledgement or conversation from the commander in chief, because we see this continual escalation between the United States and China. Are we going that way or not? What's going on? Tom Cotton wants to know. And so do we. But of course, before we carry on and learn more from Chuck Schumer, it's always appropriate to make sure we have our energy up. And one way to do that is by getting your Field of Greens real organic superfood. I have this stuff. I drink it. Here's it. My what is this called? Shaker from this morning. And it's very delicious. You can see the product right here. It's called Field of Greens. Absolutely delicious. You can go to fieldofgreens.com, save 15% with code Robert, because as you know, we all want to lose some of those extra leftover pandemic pounds or Super Bowl pounds, whatever they are. We want to get rid of them. And we all don't want to watch any of those weight loss ads or fad diet books or any of that stuff. We've all been there. We've all done that. And they don't work. But you know what does? Eating healthy, having your daily servings of fruits and vegetables every day with my friends over at Field of Greens. You do that, and I imagine the weight probably falls right off. But we've got vegetables, we've got fruit. Who's got time to prepare that every day? Instead, let's talk about Field of Greens. It's a science-backed formula of specific fruits and vegetables that you will not find in any other product. And it is been shown that proper nutrition reboots our metabolism. We can burn calories the faster and lose weight the healthier way. Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. You're going to look healthier, feel healthier, but the best proof you're going to get is when you go to your doctor at the next visit and they say, wow, you've lost weight. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. And so let's get you started. Go to fieldofgreens.com. Don't forget to use code Robert so you can save 15% and you'll get this delicious, real organic superfood delivered, and you'll start feeling healthy and vibrant and extra green, and you'll feel like your follicles are just bursting out of your head with energy. And it tastes good too. So check it out. All right, now we turn our attention over to Chuck Schumer. The leader of the Democrats is also weighing in on the balloons. Here's the Senate leader.
Question. Is that we good? Go ahead.
Okay, so let me just say this. We're learning more about these objects
and
our ability to detect them hour by hour. And what I can say is that our defense and intelligence agencies are focused like a laser on first gathering the information, assessing the information, and coming up with
what kind of laser, Chuck?
A comprehensive view to what is going on. They made it clear that there is no harm to physical harm to Americans on the ground. No one has to worry about that. And the bottom line is, I think the Biden administration is being very careful and very thoughtful. A lot of this information, people say make it public, but a lot of it is classified or on the edge of classified, and it's difficult. I think some of our Republican colleagues are being, at the very minimum, premature and often just very political.
For what? How is it political to say a Chinese spy balloon shouldn't have flown over continental U.S.?
There's a lot of information to assess. There's a lot of information to recover. And the administration is on top of this and done a very, very good job.
All right. Biden's amazing. Everybody else is an idiot. Okay. So now our final clip from the press briefing. This is what took place after the classified briefing occurred outside of the Senate. And this is a great clip from Senator Kennedy. Kennedy, senator, says that the balloons have been lost. Milley said that they were still recovering them, but this looks like maybe they don't even know where they are.
What is your general assessment? Do you feel like there are unanswered questions?
Here's what I took away from the briefing.
I love this guy.
Many people, intentionally or otherwise, have been given
He's
the
the best.
impression
Are they, is the
they're lost. They can't find them. The remnants are in very difficult terrain, low temperatures, lots of inclement weather, and they're looking, but they haven't been able to find them.
Yikes, they haven't been able to find them. They are looking, but they haven't been able to find them. What I took away from this briefing, balloons are gone. The objects are gone. Yeah, they shot them down. They know where they are at, like more or less in the area, but they haven't found them. And the journalist to his left says, what? Hold on a minute. What? Are you saying they can't find the remnants? You said they can't find the remnants. Are you saying they're lost? He says, yeah. That's what I'm telling you, lady.
Them down. But we can't find the remnants except for the spy plane. And that's what I took away from the hearing today.
When you said this has been happening many times,
They're lost. They can't find them.
Gone.
The remnants are in very difficult terrain, low temperatures,
Bye.
lots of inclement weather, and they're looking, but they haven't been able to find them, except for the spy plane.
when you say that there's been many,
Not gonna find them. Isn't that just the worst? Don't you hate that, man? Oh! It's hard to find balloons you shoot out of the sky. You know, it's very difficult.
The nation.
Well, I think that given where we are and the impression that this is some sort of circumstances that's happened in the last couple of weeks, I think at a minimum, our director of national intelligence should go in front of the American people and explain what we know, what we don't know, without divulging any classified information. But it's clear to me this is not a recent phenomenon.
Then why did they delay to shoot over this Chinese balloon? Why? If they've been studying this for so long, why'd they allow it to just float overhead? It's inconsistent.
do you think the administration waited until now to start bringing this to light?
don't
If this has
know.
been happening.
I don't know.
Roger Marshall said he feels it's like a fear mongering. It's intentional fear mongering.
I don't know.
Yes,
I
that's
just
exactly
know
right.
That going into the last two hearings, I had the impression that this was something that had happened over the last 2 weeks, and that's not accurate. This has been going on a long time.
Did they give an explanation as to why they're shooting them down now? Why they're
Nope,
deciding?
they did not.
Yeah, some are saying that it's a wagging of the dog to
Wagging of the dog.
approval ratings.
I don't care to speculate on that. I just know that
I do. I think that's exactly what this is. They don't want to talk about Ohio. They don't want to talk about inflation. They don't want to talk about Joe's classified document problem or Hunter or any of the other issues that they've got. So the Chinese sent a balloon over. All right. They totally botched the reaction on that. Then there's other objects that they have now plausible excuses for shooting out of the sky. Well, we were just turning up the gain on the radar. They blow some other objects out of the sky. They declare victory. They say, yes, our military is in charge. We don't allow anything to fly over our skies. And we're blowing out little Timmy's project over the night skies, all the time, missing while they're trying to do it. So it feels like this is kind of like a PR recovery effort in some way. And now they're telling Kennedy, yeah, there's all sorts of balloons flying overhead all the time. And then John Kirby says it's also commercial, so it may not even be that big of a deal. And they're also telling the senators that they can't even find the remnants at the current moment. They are still trying to go dig them up wherever they are. And so are we going to see anything about this at all? Was this just all one big wag the dog moment so the military could regain control of a floundering narrative? Great question, journos. Kennedy doesn't want to speculate, but the rest of us can.
we need some more transparency. I understand the need for national security secrets. But now that this cow is out of the barn, the president and the director of national intelligence needs to address it. They need to explain to the American people, if they know, and I'm not sure they know, if they know they're not telling us, what these things are, who put them up there, and do they pose a threat to the American people? And if the answer is no, how do they know that?
They don't. That's why people were so upset with them. They're admitting that this Chinese spy surveillance balloon had not been seen before. It was all unknown, but then it's also simultaneously true that we were studying these things for several years, and they know it's a spy balloon, but they let it float over our heads, and now they're having a difficult time even recovering those because of rough waters and so on and so forth. Ridiculous.
What's your assessment? Do you feel like there's a threat? Learning what you've just learned, do you feel like the threat level is low or high?
The only thing I feel confident saying right now is that if you are confused, you understand the situation perfectly.
Great. Good news. Perfect.
Question.
We're all confused. That's tremendous news. That means we all understand the situation perfectly, which is exactly right, because it is entirely inconsistent. So absolutely true from our friend Senator Kennedy. And I saw this tweet from Edward Snowden. You remember him. He's the guy currently living in Russia who is the whistleblower who revealed all sorts of government nefariousness in the United States. He posted this on his Twitter account talking about the balloon saga. He said the following: 1, it's not aliens. I wish it were aliens, but it's not aliens. I'm kind of in his boat too. Aliens would have been a more interesting story. But he says it's just the old engineered panic, an attractive nuisance ensuring that national security reporters get assigned to investigate balloon BS rather than budgets or bombings, a la the Nord Stream pipeline. Until next time, they'll just continue to do it. So also have Nord Stream and the story that Joe Biden and the White House may have facilitated the destruction of the pipeline there, as many of us here predicted a long time ago. It's the only thing that made sense. So there were other senators that were trying to avoid the cameras. One of them was our friend Lindsey Graham, who usually doesn't avoid the cameras. For some reason, he didn't have time to stop today. That's not him. Lindsey comes down the road. Here he is. Real quick, real quick. Look at her. They say, wow. They say, wow. They say, wow. He didn't even talk to us. And look at this poor journo, man. She's trying to literally block Lindsey. I mean, that's pretty dang impressive. I mean, literally, like a full wall. And Lindsey just motors on by her. Man, pretty good. It's pretty impressive there. All right, so he doesn't want to answer any questions about it. Let's watch it one more time so we can see Lindsey scoot on out of this. Okay, here he comes. Get him.
Just for really quick, I want to speak to this.
Wow, she says. Wow. All right, so that's Graham. And I have to refresh because I closed the screen too fast. All right, so we're doing that now. And of course, that was Lindsey Graham. All of that was after the intelligence briefing took place in the Senate. Our final clip is from Mitch McConnell, who is part of the Senate. He's the leader of the Senate for the Republicans, but he was not, my understanding, a part of the classified briefing. And we lovingly call Mitch here Cocaine Mitch. I don't actually think he does cocaine. I had several comments after the last Cocaine Mitch segment. They said he doesn't really do cocaine, you know. The Cocaine Mitch story comes from one of his, I think, primary opponents who called him Cocaine Mitch on the campaign trail. And I think it's hilarious because the guy clearly doesn't do cocaine because he has the energy of a turtle. But the last time we played a clip of Mitch McConnell, I was calling him Cocaine Mitch, and he sniffed. He did a sniff right before he started speaking. And so that's why it was just, you know, it had to stick with us. So he may or may not be on cocaine is the moral of the story. Let's listen.
Hello, everyone. I want to make a few observations about the president's.
And we love Mitch because he gets so angry. You know, he doesn't speak much, but when he does, you better listen up. You hear everybody shushing the crowd. Listen to him. He starts to speak. He's like a mob boss. Everybody around him, shut up, shut up. He's going to murder you.
Hello, everyone. I want to make a few observations about the president's leadership with regard to national security and defense.
All right. Come on, Cocaine Mitch.
We
Let's go.
witnessed last week the president basically watching the balloon go all across America.
Yeah.
Had very little to say about it at the time, only passing reference to the episode in the State of the Union.
He is the slowest human.
And if you look beyond to the way the president deals with defense and foreign policy, you saw that it was de-emphasized in the State of the Union.
All right, somebody give him some cocaine.
Very little reference to this whole area that we're confronting in Ukraine, and of course with China. So begin to look at the details. The defense request last year was below inflation.
All right, just cut a line
We
for
saw
him
the
right there.
withdrawal
Just put one out here. Here you go,
Complete
Mitch.
disaster from Afghanistan.
Let's go. Come on, Mitch.
On Ukraine, generally getting to the right position, but not doing it soon enough, thereby making it more difficult for the Ukrainians to defend themselves. And no reference at all in the State of the Union.
That's
to
true.
Iran,
Yeah.
to North Korea, or to the larger challenges from the PRC. So I think it is deeply disturbing that the president put all of his emphasis on things that were unrelated to the very serious threats that we're all confronting here, not only in Ukraine, not only in Asia, but even with balloons flying over our skies. I think the American people deserve to hear more from the president
That's
on all
true.
of these issues, and hopefully we will in the coming days.
That's right. Mitch is right about that. All right. So a little bit slower on the conversation there today from Mitch McConnell, but very interesting day. A lot of new takes from the senators all coming out of the classified briefing. Apparently, the balloon is lost. And so we, of course, will continue to follow. Thank you for subscribing wherever it is you're watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends, and we have one final segment on the day. But for some reason, I have a... Okay, yeah. No, I think we're good to go. All right, so we are still here. And we've got we're changing gears a little bit. We're talking about the Arizona rancher, and let's get right into it. An Arizona rancher arrested. His name is George Allen Kelly, 73 years old. He had his initial appearance, and a bunch of new filings hit the docket that we will cover today, including the complaint, a motion to continue. He's scheduled for court for a preliminary hearing on February 22nd. There was a motion to modify his release conditions. He's currently being held on a $1 million bail for allegedly murdering somebody who was on his property, an individual named Gabriel Kuhn Buitimia. And this is a person whose details are unknown. We don't know much more about this individual, but we do know where this took place. It is coming from Keno Springs, Arizona, which is not too far from the border. It's actually right on the border. And the background from the story comes over from Arizona Central, and they've got some details for us. They say an Arizona rancher is accused of shooting and killing a Mexican citizen. That's what we know. This is the story. They say a Keno Springs area rancher is accused of shooting and killing somebody. His name is George Allen Kelly, 74, first-degree murder charges. Victim, 48-year-old Gabriel Kuhn Buitimia, Mexican voter registration card. Now, we're going to go through all of the filings. He has a public defender limited in capacity. I believe she's a public defender, or she's just a court-appointed attorney. So she may not actually be, I don't want to misspeak. She may just be somebody who has a contract, but her name is Brenna Larkin, and she is filing motions on behalf of George. We have the preliminary hearing scheduled for February 22nd. They give us some background. They say, here's what we know. The U.S. Border Patrol first contacted the sheriff's office, active shooter situation. That was back on January 30th. Border Patrol received a report from a person at the scene identified as Allen in a sheriff's dispatch report. Was unsure if he was getting shot at as well, according to one news outlet. So it's all taking place in Nogales. They are outside of Nogales in Arizona, right on the border. Quen Buitimia's body was found about 100 and 150 yards from his home. One visible gunshot wound. No weapon found on or near the victim. Roughly a mile and a half north of the U.S. border, there was a GoFundMe that was set up, but that was shut down for violating terms of service. They have created another Give, Send, Go on the Christian fundraising website. They've already raised $177,000 there. So he's had several court hearings. We're going to go through some of the filings over on the mind map, and we don't know exactly who the deceased individual is, but we have more information from the initial appearance as well as the most recent filings that came out of the court. So I want to start by going through the initial appearance itself. This was the proceeding that took place out in Nogales, Arizona. This was the one involving George Allen Kelly, the Arizona rancher charged with murder for allegedly shooting and killing a Mexican citizen. Now, it is quiet right now. The courtroom is empty. We're going to see the door opens. There are people coming in, and this is George Kelly's family or wife and other people. And the reason you can surmise that without knowing anything is because they're sitting on this side of the courtroom. So in this courtroom, you see the jury panel looks like it's over here on the right side. That's where the jury would sit. The defendant typically sits opposite of the jury. And so they're sitting on this far side. The family is in here. The deceased, the victim of the crime, the alleged victim, doesn't appear to have anybody sitting on the prosecutor's side. One person stands up. They're all behind the bar, so they're not his legal counsel. Don't know what this person has in his hand, taking some notes. Looks like the court bailiff is also in there. So we've got one police officer. Then we have the security guard. Typically these are, the sheriff's department, the people who are housing the defendants. So one security guard from the sheriff's department brings out the defendant, which is George, 73 years old. So slowly walks out and they sit him down. And the family's still seated there. Now, you're not allowed to talk across the bar, right? You're not allowed. So he's not allowed to turn around and say hi to his wife or say hi to his family or anything like that. Very strict rules. He'll get in trouble. And so you've got the sheriff's deputy who's sort of standing over here. You've got another law enforcement officer who does courtroom security. And then you've got the transport security team there. So we now have Mr. Kelly sitting down, and we'll see if this picks up here. We'll fast forward a little bit. We have another person who comes into the courtroom sitting on the prosecution side. So this is the prosecution's table, and don't know who that individual is. Oftentimes, these people might be just victims advocates. So anytime there's a victim of a crime, they'll bring in a victim's advocate. And, the judge is on the phone now. Let's listen.
Court is now in session. I'm presiding Judge Emilio Velasquez. This is a time and date set for the arraignment on case number 2023-00041, State of Arizona versus George Allen Kelly. And if I can have the defendant please state his name for the record.
George Allen Kelly.
And your date of birth.
January 27, 1949.
Thank you. And do you have the complaint, please? Can you please provide him with a complaint? And Mr. Kelly, just so you're aware, is that the Nogales International has filed a request to be in the courtroom and record this session today. And also YouTube will be broadcasting this hearing today.
Okay, so we don't know. Maybe that's who that individual was. Nogales International. Maybe they are there. Maybe that's who that individual was. But I want to point out now we have 4 sheriff's deputies or transportation deputies who are in the courtroom now. So we got 1, 2, 3, plus a police officer who does courtroom security, all in the courtroom for the 73-year-old man.
May I ask a question, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
I can't read without my reading glasses.
Okay.
They're not prescription reading glasses, just 1.5 magnification or anywhere close to that.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and have these glasses provided to you so you can go ahead and see the complaint.
Thank you.
And I just want to make sure that you heard what I said right now and that you have full awareness.
Yes, sir. I heard what you said, and I'm aware of everything I can hear. And now, thanks to you, I'll be aware of what I can read.
Very good.
I can open. Okay. All
right.
Should I read this, Your Honor?
No. So I'm going to go ahead and read you. What I'm going to ask is that you remain quiet unless I ask questions of you, Mr. Kelly. All right. So it appears that you have one count against you, and that's first-degree murder. It's alleged that on or about the 30th day of January of 2023, intending or knowing that this conduct would cause death with premeditation, did cause the death of the victim with the initials of GCB, and that's a Class 1 felony. So you are presumed to be innocent until proven guilty by the state beyond reasonable doubt. You do have the right to a
That's what they
lawyer,
tell you.
the right to cross-examine witnesses, and the right to present your own witnesses at a pretrial, and the right to appeal. Do you understand that you have these rights?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
At this time, I'm going to plead you not guilty. Please be advised that if you're not a citizen of the United States, pleading guilty or no contest to a crime may affect your immigration status. Admitting guilt may result in deportation, even if the charge is later dismissed. Your plea or admission of guilt could result in deportation or removal, could affect your legal status in the United States or from becoming a United States citizen, and that is an immigration clause that has to be disclosed to all defendants. So I did receive your financial statement for the purpose of appointing an attorney. So I'm going to have you sworn in to this information, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
So some of you are asking why he does not have a lawyer yet. This is an initial appearance. And so the judge is going to go through this form and explain, or actually verify his finances and say, well, do you make enough money? Do you, can you afford a lawyer on your own? And if you can, well, then we're not going to pay for one for you. You just go find your own lawyer. Now, there's a little bit of a complexity in this situation that is going to be very interesting. One, he's in Nogales, Arizona. All right. It's a very small town. There's not a huge legal community down there. Okay. Most lawyers, and I don't want to overgeneralize here, but most of all of the big firms are in Phoenix. Okay. They're all in Phoenix, Arizona. You're going to have some large reputable firms further south of us in Tucson, do great work and all of that. But that might be the closest city center for lawyers, which is probably still, 2 hours away. So my point is, he's in a very difficult jurisdiction to reach. You're not going to get tons of lawyers who just want to go out and deal with a major felony case on the border when they're literally 4 hours away up in Phoenix, right? It's kind of a difficult thing. And he's also now, depending on how they charge this, right? If they're going to charge this with as a capital offense with capital murder or anything like that, if that comes down the pike later down the line, then you have a smaller batch of lawyers, right? Because you have to be capital certified if they're going to be going after the death penalty and stuff like that, right? My point is, depending on the severity of the charge, they will, the law provides him with counsel and based on the type of charge. But at this moment, right, it's still so early. This is the initial appearance. The judge is having him. This is just the formal stuff. He's going through the financial affidavit. They're going to say, do you make enough money to go hire your own lawyer? That's why nobody's in the courtroom with him. Now, oftentimes when I was at R&R Law Group, people would hire us before this court date, right? People would say, man, I just got arrested. I'm sitting in jail. And so we would be there. I've done many IAs in felony court down the street in Superior Court. But this has happened so quickly, and because there's no lawyers available, and he's sort of in the middle of of a rural area as a rancher, he's kind of on his own right now.
All right, I just need you to raise your right hand. Do you swear that the information you provided here is the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So, Mr. Kelly, I did review this, and I just wanted to ask you. On the first time that we met, did you mention that you had a ranch?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So is that what you're including here as mortgage?
No, Your Honor. It also includes my home, which is on the ranch.
All right. Is that under your name, sir?
My wife and I name.
Okay. So then I don't know that this is complete then, right? Because the information that I have here shows you pretty indigent. And it sounds like when you mentioned that you had a ranch, it sounds like you may have some collateral. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and appoint an attorney for the sake of today's hearing and moving forward. I'm going to go ahead and appoint an attorney. But I will tell you that it's an indigent attorney list, right? Public defenders.
Would you kindly?
Well, just one moment. So what's going to have to happen is you're either going to have to retain your own attorney, or you're going to have to go ahead and talk to the attorney that will temporarily be appointed and discuss with her her rates.
I will talk to the attorney that you're going to appoint.
All right, very well. So at this time then, I'm going to go ahead and appoint Ms. Brenda Larkin, and she will be coming into the jail to see you. So at this time, Mr. Kelly, then, I'm going to continue to hold you on the $1 million cash bond. If you post the bond and you're released, these are your conditions. You're to notify the court of any change of address, appear to all your hearings, and you're not to violate any federal, state, or local laws. You're not to leave the state without written permission from the courts. You're not to drive without a valid driver's license. You're not to possess any firearms or illegal drugs. You're not to have any contact with the family, the victims of the family, and if required by the court, you may be drug or alcohol tested. Is that understood?
Yes, Your Honor.
But he's not getting out or going anywhere, so. All right, so
So your next hearing is going to be the 8th of February, and it will be at 9 o'clock in the morning.
That got continued. It's now February 22nd. That also is very unlikely, I think, to take place. We'll talk about that in a minute as we go through the docket.
I just need you to go ahead and complete the demographic information on the bottom of the form, please.
Do I do that now, Your Honor?
That is correct, Mr. Kelly.
All right, so they bring him the form and they bring him a pen. And so he's going to fill it out. So we'll fast forward just a little bit through that. You can see him still in handcuffs.
Print my name or assign it.
Still in handcuffs with 4 security officials there. Filling out the paperwork. Now turns it over to the bailiff.
You used the word indigent. Would you please give me your definition of indigent?
It's someone that has an income, a certain income that doesn't qualify them for, that qualifies them for a hired attorney. But somebody who's not, that doesn't make a certain amount of money a year, right? So it'd be somebody who's not making more than probably $20,000, $25,000 a year.
That's more than accurate. I understand.
Thank you.
So that's more than accurate. He says, I understand. They bring him another form. He says, all right, you're going to have to sign this. And there's going to be another form. We'll take a quick look at it, basically acknowledging that he heard everything the judge said, right? So this is a very, very basic, very quick proceeding. Sometimes these things take, less than 2 minutes, honestly. If you had a lawyer there,
ask one more question at appropriate time.
One moment, please.
If a lawyer were there, all of this stuff would have been dealt with before, and it would have been a 2-minute proceeding, if that. But they're filling out all this paperwork. And the judge said, hang on a minute. You can see the families talking back there, and the court bailiff or the court security told him to stop talking, went up there and said, stop talking. And the judge is still reviewing things.
This is coming in, Your Honor.
So he asks a question here.
Go ahead and proceed, Mr. Kelly.
I noticed coming in, Your Honor, my wife is present in the court. May I ask her to make an appointment for an audio-visual conference, and I've not been able to talk to her or anyone?
So that's something that has to be discussed with the detention facility downstairs. So that conversation would have to be had with them, sir. Okay.
So he can't turn around and say anything to his wife. Okay. This is a very frustrating thing that happens. And it's very frustrating when you're in there with a client and they want to just say hello to their wife or their daughter or somebody who's there with them. They are not allowed to talk. So oftentimes a lawyer will be there to facilitate and communicate back and forth. But in this case, he doesn't have an attorney. So it's just him alone. Fortunately, his wife probably heard that. Okay. So you can kind of talk to them without talking to them by asking questions. See how he did that, which was very nice. So she will get the message to go down and set up a phone call, but this is how it goes.
So if your wife wants to have communication with you, she can go to the sheriff's office and they can go ahead and make the proper accommodations that they need to make.
I appreciate you giving that instruction.
So the proceeding is coming to a close. The judge is finalizing some paperwork. Let's see.
Any other questions, Mr. Kelly?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Hearing's adjourned.
All rise. They all stand up, and then they're going to walk the 73-year-old rancher from Arizona, George Allen Kelly. He's trying to say something to his wife. You saw that, and they shut him that up real quick. He says over to her probably, hey, I love you. I'll see you soon. Everything's going to be okay. Says something right there. Get out of here. Turn around. And scoot on out of here. And so there he is, walking out of the courtroom, back into his prison cell, which he will be in until we have another court date. So that is the initial appearance, and I want to show you the document on that very briefly. First, here is the complaint. This was filed out of the Santa Cruz County Justice Court. You see it is the complaint charging George Allen Kelly with a first-degree murder. It says that on or about January 30th, intending or knowing that his conduct would cause death, premeditation of death, GCB, we already heard that name. This was filed and signed on the second day of February. So we have that. We also have now a notice of appearance. So you heard that the judge said that he was going to be appointing an individual to represent him. This was Brenna Larkin. She's out from a city called Tumacory in Arizona. This is her notice of appearance. And she says, look, I've been appointed to represent George Allen Kelly on this case. We also have several other filings from her. So that was the complaint. We have the initial appearance document. This is the signature of George. This is what he was filling out there when he was in court, right? This is what he was signing there on that one sheet of paper. And you can see this is basically the form that the judge fills out when they do their initial appearances. They say, okay, you're due back here on this date. You have to execute a bond. It's in the amount of $1 million. Prompt, give written notice or change of address. Don't violate the law. Can't possess firearms or illegal drugs. Of course, he's going to be in custody. Don't contact or talk to the victim's family, and so on and so forth. So all of that, of course, is just kind of the standard forms that you'll see. But there was also a motion to continue because there was a court date that was scheduled on the 8th, if you remember, and that was a little too soon. So the newly appointed defense lawyer filed a motion to continue and said, look, I need more time to do my work, to do my investigation into all of this. And there's also a motion to modify George's release conditions. The judge set release conditions, said, yeah, you can go home if you post $1 million bond. You can't go do all of this other stuff, right? Like these are the release conditions. These are the additional conditions. But if you can post that bond, then you can go free subject to these conditions. And so what the defense attorney is asking is to modify those conditions. So let's take each one in turn, starting with the motion to continue. You see, this one was filed by Brenna Larkin down in Tumacory, Arizona. The motion to continue is written as follows. She says, all right, comes now the defendant, Mr. Kelly in this case. They say Mr. Kelly does not qualify for court-appointed counsel. Uh-oh. And he's in the process of procuring counsel to represent him. So that means that after the indigency conversation, okay, she sat down with him and they said, oh, how much money do you make and all this stuff? And she says, well, you've got too many assets. You've got too much money. So you got to go hire a lawyer. we can't help you. She says, I have just been appointed in a limited capacity. Okay, so I'm not really on this case. I'm just sort of on this case for a little bit until he gets another attorney on the case. So additionally, she says, the disclosure of the discovery, all the police reports and all the evidence from the Border Patrol and all the different agencies is fairly voluminous, and it's going to take significant time to review. And so for these reasons, we respectfully request a continuance of approximately 2 weeks. We waive time. The defense is waiving time. Remember, you have a right to a speedy trial, and if you want to exercise it, you can exercise that. The government can't delay. So when you ask for a continuance on the defense, you waive that time. That time, those 2 weeks, are not going to count against the government. The clock is not going to start running on that one. All right, so that's the motion to continue. Now, Brenna's also been working hard, and so she also drafted a motion to modify his release conditions, which is the big one. Okay, this is a good motion. This is the one that you want to file in a case like this, basically right away, to see if you can get that modified. So it's a $1 million bond. He's got all sorts of other conditions. I can't post a $1 million bond. Judge, please reduce it. Here are the arguments as to why. Here's what they say. All right, here now comes Mr. George Allen Kelly through counsel, and we request that he be released on his own recognizance in this case. Wow. Okay, that's like a big ask. That is the entirely opposite ask. All right. So on the one hand, if you want to put all this on a spectrum, on the one hand, you have no bail, no bond. Okay, like you're not getting out. There are certain offenses in Arizona, you just don't get out. You're too much of a danger. Sorry, you can't get out of custody. And so he's not in that category, but he's pretty close. He's in the next category over, which is $1 million bond, which is a big chunk of change as well. And then you have kind of, a category of you go down the line. You can also release somebody to pretrial services, and so they have somebody they're checking in with on a regular basis. You can do release conditions, drug testing, all these conditions, okay? Home confinement, all sorts of other things, right? Don't go to these locations, and the judges can do very interesting things for release conditions. But on the far end, the opposite end of no bail is no release conditions, basically. You're just free. You just go on your own. You promise to come back? Yeah. All right. You go on your own. No bond, nobody to check in with, nothing to do, essentially. Your own recognizance. So it's a big ask, right? This defense attorney is like taking the complete opposite end. In the alternative, they say, well, we respectfully request that he be released to a third party or that his bond be reduced or converted into a surety bond. All right. So what this leads me to believe is that this defense lawyer is taking a look at this case and saying, this is a garbage case, right? Because that is a big ask. To ask that he be released with no conditions, it's basically saying he's innocent. He didn't do anything wrong at all. He's not a threat to the community. He's not a danger to the community. There's no criminal culpability that we can see here. And release him on his own recognizance because he's as good as innocent. They say Mr. Kelly's request is based on the Constitution and explained further in the memorandum of law provided here. It starts with the facts. This is from George Allen Kelly's defense lawyer. Says that on January 30th, George Allen Kelly reported the discovery of a body on his property near Keno Springs, where he and his wife have lived for the past 2 decades. Earlier in the day, Mr. Kelly had completed chores on his ranch and had come to his house to eat lunch with his wife. As they ate, Mr. Kelly heard a single gunshot. Next, he saw his horse, who was old, running away scared and at full speed. Finally, he saw a group of men moving through the trees around his home. They were armed with AK-47 rifles, dressed in khakis and camouflaged clothing, and carrying large backpacks. None of them were known to him. He had not given any of them permission to come onto his land. Based on the foregoing, Mr. Kelly was understandably concerned and reasonably feared for his safety, his wife's safety, and his animal's safety. So Mr. Kelly called the U.S. Border Patrol the ranch liaison, specifically assigned to aid people living on the borderlands to report what he had seen and to summon immediate help. Mr. Kelly told his wife, stay inside, get away from the windows, and be quiet. Don't alert the men that you're here. Mr. Kelly then went onto his porch with his rifle. The leader of the armed group of men saw Mr. Kelly and pointed an AK-47 right at him. Mr. Kelly feared for his life and safety, fired several shots from his rifle, hoping to scare them away from him, his wife, and his animals and his home. As he shot, Mr. Kelly took care to aim well over the heads of the armed group of men. The group then began running into the desert surrounding his home. Once the group had fled, Mr. Kelly walked over to his barn to see if it was safe and secure. Mr. Kelly had a conversation with that Border Patrol ranch liaison again that ended at 2:36 p.m. Mr. Kelly reported that he heard a single shot and that the men he had seen were armed. The Border Patrol liaison incorrectly reported that Mr. Kelly stated he could not tell whether the men were armed or not. That's convenient. However, the dispatch on the radio to the Border Patrol agents en route at 2:40 p.m. correctly reported that the armed men had been seen in the area. All right. So this Border Patrol ranch liaison very conveniently forgot to include a key fact in this story. Kelly says they're armed. Border Patrol says, well, he couldn't tell. That's not true. He said that they were armed because when he called it in, dispatch picked it up. Correctly reported that the armed men had been seen in the area. Actually, that's not. I can see how there could be a hole there. Briefly, the hole could be. I'd like to dig into this. I would like to see what that call was. Yeah. All right. We'll just leave that one there. I have a question about this. So we'll keep our tabs on this. What did Kelly say when he called? Is the Border Patrol ranch liaison accurately or inaccurately reporting that fact? If that is an inaccurate fact, that's going to be a big problem for them because it wrecks their credibility on their reporting. That's a big problem. So we'll put a pin in that one. We'll put a nice little star on that one. That's kind of all right. Forget that's a star. While Mr. Kelly was checking his barn, a number of Border Patrol agents and sheriffs arrived on the property. Border Patrol agents encountered Mr. Kelly, who indicated to them he had seen a group of armed men near his house. Sheriff deputies made contact with Mr. Kelly's wife, who also indicated she saw armed men near the house carrying large backpacks. So wife saw it too. Two witnesses now. Border Patrol agents and sheriff deputies walked all over Mr. Kelly's property in search of the group of people, but didn't find anybody. Border Patrol used various cameras in order to try to locate the men, but they were unsuccessful. After stating that they would document the incident and to call if Mr. Kelly needed them again, law enforcement left the property. Later that day, as the sun was going down, Mr. Kelly went to his pastures in order to check on his horse. He was still concerned that his horse might have been injured in the incident. Mr. Kelly took his dogs with him to check on the horse. After locating the horse, Mr. Kelly noticed that his dogs were focused on something on the ground near a mesquite tree. Mr. Kelly approached his dogs and observed a body lying face down in the grass. Mr. Kelly was alarmed by this discovery, and he put a lit flashlight on the ground in order to be able to find the body again. Mr. Kelly then called Border Patrol ranch liaison again in order to report the discovery and request the assistance from law enforcement. When the law enforcement showed up again, Mr. Kelly helped them to find the body, and he cooperated with their investigation. During the investigation, it was discovered that the body was that of a male foreign national. So he goes out to check on his horses later that day. The sun was going down, so it's nighttime. He approached his dogs. They find something on the ground near a mesquite tree. He sees a body lying on the ground. He goes over, shines the flashlight on it, calls Border Patrol right away. Border Patrol comes out. They discover male foreign national, no firearms or a backpack on him. Cause of death appeared to be a single gunshot wound, and it appeared the body was fresh. The person had a radio with him, and he was wearing tactical boots, indicating that he was possibly involved in illegal activity. Defense lawyer says the investigation is ongoing. Disclosure is continuing to be made to the defense. It remains unknown what kind of bullet caused the wound to the person, what the time of death was, how long the body had been in that location, or where and in what position the person was in prior to receiving the fatal wound. Do they even know he shot him? Mr. Kelly cooperated with law enforcement officials and provided an interview. He admitted to firing warning shots at the smugglers earlier the day, but denied firing any shots directly at the person. He does not believe that any of his warning shots could have possibly hit the person or caused the death. All of the shooting that Mr. Kelly did on the date was in self-defense and justified. Do they even know if it's his bullet? What? This is the defense attorney writing this. she says here, it remains unknown what kind of bullet caused the wound to the person. Do they know what kind of bullets came out of the guns they confiscated? Because then they could get the bullet and just match them. I mean, is it even the same caliber? Or was it one of the other guys who shot him and took his backpack and ran off with it and left him with his radio and his ID? One of the other people who was also illegally, doing whatever they were doing, running around with armed vehicles or armed weapons that the Border Patrol was trying to track down. Maybe they shot the guy, not Mr. Kelly. Sheriff deputies arrested and they booked Mr. Kelly. He's been charged with first-degree murder, $1 million cash bond. So they go through some of the law and analysis here, and they tell us that under Arizona law, basically, I'll fast forward through this. Basically, the law says that, bail should be the least amount possible to secure somebody's appearance, right? We have the presumption of innocence in this country still for whatever amount of time we have it left. And we want to presume that people should be out. If they're a threat to the community, if they're a danger to themselves, if they're violent criminals, and we don't want to let people out. If they're flight risks, we don't want to let them out. But she's saying that none of that is here. She says here, bond is not necessary to ensure that Kelly is going to appear. His wife's going to take him home. His wife's going to ensure his conduct and that he appears at future proceedings. He's not going anywhere. If Mr. Kelly were to be released, he's readily going to comply with all different release conditions. You can even put him on pretrial services if you want. Accordingly, the court should release him to the custody of his wife or his own recognizance rather than bond. And if you don't do that, Judge, you should reduce the bond less than $1 million. 2, they say there's no evidence that Mr. Kelly has intimidated any witnesses. There's no evidence that he is a threat to the community, right? We don't need to protect society from this guy. He's got no criminal record at all, is my understanding. So they go through more of the rules, determining the methods. It's a lot of heavy lifting, so we'll fast forward through it. She says here, considering the factors delineated above, a $1 million cash bond is clearly excessive, okay? And it seems like you're trying to keep the defendant in custody while he's trying to provide for his innocence. He can't even get a lawyer. He hasn't even spoken to his wife at that last IA yet there. And as I said, right, this is in Nogales. It's in a very far, remote part of Arizona, right on the border. There's not just a bunch of billboards with convenient lawyers all over the place. So the defense says the court is not permitted to set a bond amount that is designed to keep a defendant in custody. You must determine the lowest amount necessary to secure the person's appearance. Okay, that's the standard. You don't need to overly punish somebody. It's whatever it takes to get him to come back to court, nothing more. So they say here, the views of the victim in this case are unknown. No extended family who apparently showed up to court. We didn't see that. And I think that was the journo from the Nogales Independent. The nature and the charge of the offense, they says, yeah, it is a pretty serious allegation here. Of course, murder is a serious charge, but this was overcharged. We don't even have evidence that the bullet was his, is what this defense attorney said. He has no criminal history at all. He's not a danger to the community. She says he's 75 years old, no history that he's going to hurt anybody. He was having a difficult time walking to the bench in the court. Now, the weight of the evidence, this is from the defense attorney. She says, the evidence against Mr. Kelly is extremely weak in this case. Law enforcement was not able to locate a body when they searched Mr. Kelly's property after he fired the warning shots to warn away the armed men. They were already there before. They didn't see it. Kelly's actions are those of an innocent man. He himself called law enforcement to report the discovery of the body. Mr. Kelly cooperated with the investigation and gave a statement to law enforcement. Called him twice. No bullet has been found in order to do testing to determine which gun fired the fatal shot. It is entirely possible that a person found on Mr. Kelly's property was a victim of another drug trafficker. Yeah. The radio found in possession of the deceased person indicates this person was participating in a smuggling activity on Mr. Kelly's property. The inherent dangers of illegal smuggling, along with the fact that a group of heavily armed men was seen in the area earlier in the day, strongly points to the conclusion that the deceased victim was a victim of drug trafficking related activity. They shot him, stole his backpack, blamed it on the other guy. Now, The defense says, while not everyone maybe would have fired warning shots like Mr. Kelly did, it is important to understand that Mr. Kelly did not ask to be confronted by a group of armed men trespassing on his land near his house. Mr. Kelly's actions were justified under the law as self-defense and defense of others, including his wife. She says, quite simply, this is a case where an innocent man has been wrongfully accused of a crime. While the prosecutor believes that Mr. Kelly committed first-degree murder, the shocking lack of evidence linking him to the body makes it a far stretch for anyone to believe that Mr. Kelly murdered an unarmed person on his land with premeditation. Of all possible explanations for this person's death, this is the least plausible. Had Mr. Kelly truly murdered someone without premeditation, then he would have no incentive to call law enforcement and lead them to the body. Just drag it across the border. Which is morbid, but I mean, if he was a murderer who's trying to get away with murder, that's what he would be doing, wouldn't he? On the contrary, he would have had every incentive to dispose of the body in the vast, isolated desert surrounding his property. Yeah, Mr. Kelly would have had plenty of opportunity to do so. Instead, he chose to alert law enforcement and assist them in their investigation because he didn't do it. The accused and his family ties all show that he is very closely connected to the community. He has a wife and 2 sons. His family is extremely supportive of them. They were probably sitting there in the courtroom behind him. His sons are grown up and they live out of state. Maybe not. One of them is a professor and another is a professional horse trainer. He has a number of grandchildren. He was born in North Carolina, attended college, married his wife in the 1970s, supported his family ever since. Kelly's background involves higher education, pre-med, pre-vet studies. It was Mr. Kelly's intention to go to vet school and become a veterinarian. However, when his wife became pregnant with their first child, he began working. He worked for the National Park Service for Fish and Wildlife and eventually retired with his wife in Montana. In Montana, they opened a fishing lodge. They allowed their children to run the business, eventually sold it. They moved here to Arizona in 1997 and began ranching. They purchased the land in Keno Springs back in 2002. The house was built in 2008. They've been living there ever since. Their only income is their Social Security. Hardworking Americans, retiring, living on the border, now being charged with murder. The land and house they own free and clear. They also own land near Springerville. They say Mr. Kelly's assets are limited. They're not liquid. He describes himself as being land rich and dollar poor. They say in terms of his character and mental condition, they say he's healthy and stable. He has many friends that support him. He's maintained friendships over the year. He's not a flight risk of any kind. He firmly believes in his innocence, and he's committed to being close to his wife to emotionally support her in this difficult time. He wants to support his wife while he's in custody for a crime he didn't do. Mr. Kelly has no criminal history, no trouble with the law, no problems with drugs or alcohol, always supported himself and his family. He is a man of excellent character. He is elderly and he forgets things sometimes, but he is mentally sound and stable. Never used drugs, including marijuana. It's not a meth crime. He's lived in the community for 26 years, never been arrested or charged with any other offenses. Always appeared in court. He had some civil litigation with his land, but not a big deal. He was born in North Carolina. He's a citizen, and he resides here in Arizona. They say, in addition, Judge, it's also important for this court to know that Mr. Kelly has received some significant threats against his person by other inmates in the jail. You probably understand what this is looking like to everybody. Oh, a racist white Arizona rancher murdered a poor migrant who was just coming across to seek a better life in the land of the free. And so he's probably in a pretty precarious position down there. As a result, Mr. Kelly has been moved to protective custody and he's on 23-hour lockdown. Perfect. Mr. Kelly has some medical issues due to his age. In order to protect his privacy, we're not going to talk about those here, but he does need to talk to a doctor and manage his medical conditions. The defense says this case has also garnered a remarkable amount of media attention. No kidding. Mr. Kelly is concerned about his safety and well-being, as well as that of his wife and his sons. Mr. Kelly and his family are private people and will not be engaging with the media regarding this case at this time. They don't want to talk about it. Finally, this case will require significant time and preparation for all the parties ready to go to trial. The defense will be requesting the services of investigators, mitigation specialists, various experts in order to prepare a defense. And holding Mr. Kelly in solitary confinement, essentially, at that time, is cruel and unusual punishment. The man is 73 or 75 years old. Ridiculous. So Brenna, in an excellent motion to modify release conditions, continues and finishes in conclusion, says, based on the factors outlined above and how Mr. Kelly's particular circumstances apply to each factor, Mr. Kelly respectfully requests to be released on his own recognizance, which now, after reading this, I think is the absolute right ask. It was a bold ask at the start of this. Absolutely the right call. They don't even know the bullet matches his gun, according to this defense lawyer. Release him on his own recognizance, which just means just let him out. No bond, no bail, no connect, nothing. Basically, let him go. Or if the court's inclined to do so, release him to his wife or somebody, a third party, or reduce the amount of the bond less than $1 million. And that is signed by Brenna Larkin, attorney for the defendant. So, Matt, shout out. Good, very excellent motion from Brenna Larkin. Revealed a lot more information about this case. And it sounds way worse than I thought in terms of being overly charged and being a miscarriage of justice. Now, we have a lot to see, right? We still don't have the reports or the discovery, but we have the presumption of innocence in this country. And he still has that. He's entitled to that. And it sounds like he's getting railroaded at this point in time by an overzealous prosecutor who is trying to turn this case probably into something that it isn't. Of course, we'll wait and see. Now, that being said, just so that we're covering all of our bases here, there's another interesting thing that popped up that the prosecution, I think, is going to really try to latch onto, all right? And this might be part of the reason why this is being charged. I don't know. But if you go on Amazon and look up this book, Far Beyond the Border Fence, George Kelly, the defendant, wrote this book. And they are pointing to this. A lot of people in the media are saying this is evidence that this guy is a racist because he wrote this book. And the book, if you read the description on it, it says that it's a contemporary novel which brings the Mexican border drug conflict into the 21st century. And they say the owner of VMR Ranch, which matches the initials of the ranch that he owns, in the book, it's located in southern Arizona. It discovers that the horses are missing and that his southern fence leading to Mexico has been cut. Okay, so it's like this fictional story about a rancher in southern Arizona who has to get involved in this drug war that's going on his land between America and Mexico. So the prosecutors are latching onto that, right? They're going to say, oh, yeah, this guy is just living out his little bloodlust fiction fantasy land, you know, and that is motive. I'm pretty sure we're going to see that come out from the prosecutors because this motion to modify is going to have a response. The prosecutors are going to respond and they're going to say, well, he's a danger and he's this and he's the worst and he's a murderer. And they're going to come out with more evidence, but we'll see what that looks like. In the meantime, of course, our defendant here, George Allen Kelly, does have a give, send, go. And we saw that was reported in the news articles. And so if you're inclined and you want to go support his efforts, that's where they're doing it. Of course, double check to make sure, you know, it's something comfortable you're doing and you're capable of doing that and that it's the real thing. But there are places where you can support his efforts. And of course, he will need them. We will continue to cover this. I am a criminal defense lawyer in Arizona, no longer with the R&R Law Group, but still very much interested in justice and this case. So we will cover it. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking this video wherever it is you're watching it. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends. Well, that was it for us on the day. We covered some good ground, man. That Arizona story, this rancher story is way worse than I thought. And so I'm very excited to see what comes next on that. We also had the balloon saga, and happy Valentine's Day to everybody out there, especially Eric Swalwell. The Chinese say happy Valentine's Day. Love Fang Fang for our Eric Swalwell, Chinese spy bang banger. And we heard from Milley. We also heard from our friend Senator Kennedy and others. But now it's time to hear from you and to see what you have to say about all of this stuff and more from our friends over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, over from Rumble, over from Twitter. And I think we had a couple super chats that came in as well. And thank you for those. I'm very appreciative for those super chats. I think Fred Pedamonte's dog is acting up again. I think I saw one of those come by. Let's see what we have in the house. The first one is from Fred Pedamonte. He says here, Rob, I couldn't find Johnny. So his dog, Johnny, is the weirdest dog. It's sort of like smart, like an Einstein kind of. It's weird. Okay, Rob, I couldn't find Johnny. Bathroom door was locked. Question. What are you doing in there? He yelled, I'm busy. Leave me alone. So Fred broke in. There were 2 pit bulls and an entire meth lab. And he says, yep, the meth was blue. Oh my gosh. Johnny is Heisenberg? Johnny is Heisenberg. Oh my goodness. Well, that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to Breaking Bad. Was that going to be season 6? 2 pit bulls and an entire meth lab. Isn't that a rapper? Were they listening to his music too? Fred Pedemonte's now doing meth. He's now running meth labs. Well, it's interesting. Things are going to get really wild over there in Fred's household. Thank you, Fred. And thank you, Johnny. We had another one from Naz, last name Amar, says, chances are they are drones, talking about the balloons flying overhead. And I don't know. Yeah, maybe they're drones. Maybe they're some of those tic-tac object shapes that we talked about yesterday. Maybe they are little Timmy's science project. Who knows what they are? Thank you, Naz. Fred says, Johnny said there was one balloon, the rest fake. Johnny knows because he probably put them up there. And we were suspecting that maybe the Chinese balloon was causing Johnny to sort of wig out a little bit, because I know I felt like a communist there for a couple days. Angie Jack says, is there a Give, Send, Go account that we can make donations to for his legal fees? My heart breaks for this man. Me too, Angie. Holy moly. Yeah, talk about getting your blood pressure up to level 1,000 instantly. Just read that motion to modify release conditions. That'll do it. Yeah, so there is. I don't have the link, but certainly if you look him up, you just search for his name and make sure it's the real thing. Make sure the news is saying it's already got $177,000 or whatever. So that will be the best place to do it. But all right, and so I think Viantica says he dug it up and he posted it. So thank you for doing that, V. Mod down the fort as always for us. Appreciated it. All right, we also have on our Rumble chat, we got our friends Salty Zipper, this thing right here. Also, Janik 909. We also have Nick Danger the third, Annie Graham, Vianticus Prime's over there. Army Brat says, great show. Thanks, Army Brat. Janik's in the house. Dog Digger, Seth Covington's over there. Good to see you, Seth. Psycho Kinesis is over there. Says, this is stranger than fiction, man. Trust 2 Kid says, help Mr. Kelly. Yeah, free George Kelly would be a good hashtag. Free George Kelly would be a good one. Because that is something that, again, we could be wrong. Maybe all this is fake. Maybe he told his defense attorney a bunch of nonsense, but that would be weird for somebody who has lived a life like we just heard to suddenly turn into this like murdering cover-up person who then calls the police and reports on himself. Gosh, what a joke. All right. And so thank you to our Rumble friends. Let's see what's going on over at Twitter before we wrap it up over to head on over to our locals after party, which is where we would appreciate. Oh my goodness. We have 3 viewers over on Twitter. Things are out of control over there. I think we're going backwards, which is just a lot of fun. All right. So we had a couple comments. V says, I can see the prosecutor running for office in the future. He tried to convict a man for murder without ever even looking at the evidence. It's actually insane that they didn't even match the bullet. Totally nuts. Paul says, this one is ready with that load, Joe. This is a bull on balloons. Ready with that, like a load of BS, like bull BS. Is that what I'm going for there? We have Julie says, I have a pyramid to sell you in Memphis. James is in the house. Vianticus Prime shared the Give, Send, Go for George Kelly here on the Twitter. Thank you for that one there, V. Appreciate that. And some others came in. Oh, yes. Hey, it's the Windows 95 Field of Greens from Rebecca John. Yes. Field of Greens from the Windows. From Windows 95. Or what is that? Windows 98? Which one was that one? I forget. CA Human says, thank you for posting the book. That's another great idea. Yeah, another great idea. You can also go purchase the book. Great idea. Thank you for that suggestion, CA Human. I didn't even think about that. Savvy Sue says, happy Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day to you, Savvy Sue. Here's another fun compare and contrast. Remember Shannon Brandt, the guy who murdered that teen in a hit and run? $50,000 bail, no problem. Thanks for playing. George Kelly probably didn't even shoot the guy. $1 million bail. because that's the country that we live in. What a world. All right. So we also have, okay, that one was the balloon picture, which turned the L's into R's, which, hard time reading those. Oh, here's Pete Buttigieg, who's in Ohio. He's walking away from the catastrophe there. All right. And so those are from our friends over on Twitter. And I see Words Mean Things is over there. What's up, Words Mean Things? Al Holman. Good to see you, Al Holman. All right. And so those are from our Twitter friends. And of course, if you're on Twitter, why don't you head on over there and follow your fellow watchers and connect with people and like their stuff, like it. We can all be a little stingy with our likes. We want to like each other's stuff and support each other out there in the vast wasteland of Twitter. All right. And so that, my friends, is it for us on the day. We are going to wrap it up right there. We are going over to our after party at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. That is the web address if you'd like to join us. But hey, my goodness, I saw a random person is in the house and sent in a nice super chat. Thank you, random person, for that one. No question on that one. And Zulu is very generous. Zulu, thank you so much for gifting those 5 memberships to our friends, which is a lot of fun. So we do member-only morning streams. So this morning, if you're on YouTube, if you were on YouTube or if you were on Locals, we did a morning stream. We like to do headlines in the mornings. We check out what's going on with the committee hearings, check out the calendar. We're building an actual calendar for our whole community with all the cases, all the criminal cases, all the judicial committee hearings, all the oversight committee hearings, all the stuff that's going on a calendar. So we're building that out right now. Come check it out, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Of course, also a great time to consider getting your Field of Greens. Save 15% with code Robert. It is good. Somebody asked, Speech Unleashed asked if I was do you actually drink it, Rob? Yes, I actually do drink it. I put it in this blender bottle. This is my morning leftover residue. It's actually good. Okay. There are some products that taste like you're eating a can of grass. It's not. It's actually, it's good. Right. And so I would recommend it. Fieldofgreens.com, save 15%, use code Robert, and just be bursting with green energy, just like I am, baby. All right. Also want to shout out my former law firm. I'm no longer at the R&R Law Group, but they're still doing amazing work. And there's a lot of people who are in Arizona over the weekend. If you happen to know anybody who's in trouble with the law, R&R Law Group is the firm to help. 480-787-0394, online at rrlawaz.com. Also want to thank the mods and the meme smiths who help put the show together and keep things orderly for us. Big shout outs to our friend Vienticus Prime, K Bean in the house, Just Cause, Playing Hooky, Ronnie Cole, our friend Zulu, and Geomancy Games, who all keep things nice and orderly in the chat for us. Also want to thank our meme smiths. At Sleepy Dog Lee is the account to follow on Twitter if you haven't already done that. And of course, Geegum Geegum is over on Locals and helping us with some of the very amazing memes. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. We are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. I would love to see you there. But if not, we will be back here tomorrow to do it all again. And I hope to see you there so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. And thank you to John McGarvey. And John McGarvey bought 5 memberships. So our YouTube chat is just going to be lit tomorrow. We're going to have member headlines tomorrow, and it's just going to be a lot of fun. So all the new members, including Law Nerd Clips, what's up, Law Nerd Clips? Come and join us for our headlines show tomorrow on the day. It's going to be a beautiful Wednesday. So come and check that out. But that is it for us on the day. We're going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. All my friends, have yourselves a beautiful evening. Sleep very well. And I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye, everybody.